This is destiny. He's got his problems, but he had a debate with this MAGA nutcase. It was actually really interesting. Let's give it a listen.
Donald Trump, who is an un-American, treasonous president, yes, are leading to like the destruction of this country. Yes, absolutely.
And the 80 million people on this side see the identical situation on the other side.
Yeah, but the difference is those people are idiots.
I would say the same in reverse.
I know you would, but the difference between you and me is if you want to dive into the facts of any side is involved in the destruction of this country, like the actual
80 million,
destruction of this country. Yes, however many people are supporting Donald Trump, who is an un-American, treasonous president, yes, are leading to like the destruction of this country. Yes, absolutely.
And the 80 million people on this side see the identical situation on the other side.
Yeah, but the difference is those people are idiots.
Well, like Trump supporters, like I don't think that they believe this stuff necessarily because they're idiots. I think they believe it because they've been brainwashed into believing it. And that's absolutely indisputable. Look at the facts of any situation. You know how in pretty much any situation, like the heat of the moment, you get information about stuff and people assume that it's correct. They assume a certain way, but nobody really 100% knows for sure, right? Well, Trump supporters always go with the thing that Republicans are arguing or that Donald Trump is like promoting or whatever, right? At the end of the day, when this stuff is finally adjudicated, it always, every single time, turns out that that side was absolutely unequivocally wrong. Completely and totally wrong. Like the idea that hydroxychloroquine like heals COVID or whatever. That's just not true. That was never true, ever. Like, I get people wondering in the moment, well, is it true? Maybe, ivermectin, is it possible? I get people like asking those questions in the moment. But every single time there's something like this comes up, every time the Republicans or Donald Trump endorse some shit like this, every time it's wrong. And we can look at the facts 6 months later, or, years later in this case, and see the fact that, like, it's just not helpful. And if you want to believe that hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin secretly are helpful, then you have to throw out every single study done by every independent researcher in every country across the world, because all of them have shown unequivocally that hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin do not have any effect on COVID. And it's not just sometimes. It's not like hit or miss. It's not like, sometimes Trump supporters come up with an idea and Trump endorses it and it's right. It's literally never. I don't know of a single case where Trump supporters had this culture war issue that Trump endorsed and they went all in for like that, like COVID and ivermectin and stuff. And they were correct about it and the rest of the world was incorrect. Not one thing. So the point is, I am willing to accept the possibility that maybe my side is incorrect about stuff. I'm willing to accept that there, it's like a 50-50 shot, and maybe you're right. Maybe the anti-Trump supporters are the ones destroying the country. Maybe they're the idiots. Maybe they need to start listening to, people more or whatever. I'm willing to accept that, but I'm going to have to see at least one example of them being right about a single conspiracy theory or culture war issue or anything at all. Literally anything. I will take anything. I'm going to have to see one instance of that, and then I will consider it. And you know what? If that doesn't do it for you, consider this one. Every single issue that is ever adjudicated, discussed, argued, whatever, every social issue, every societal, whatever, Donald Trump and his supporters are always on the side of eliminating human rights and building Trump's power. Every single time. Zero exceptions. Zero. I don't believe in eliminating human rights. That's one of my core base fundamental values. So with those two positions in place, that is why I do not support Trump, and that is why I accept the fact that Trump supporters are destroying society, and non-Trump supporters are not destroying society. They are improving society. That is how I come to these conclusions that this guy, this conundrum he just tried to place me in and failed.
Yeah, but the difference is those people are idiots.
I would say the same in reverse.
I know you would, but the difference between you and me is if you want to dive into the facts of any of these particular things, I will gladly do it, but you'll avoid it like the plague. Of course, you don't want to talk about what Rudy Giuliani was involved in, because if you did, you'd have to admit that there's a really good reason to disbar him. And of course,
I wouldn't get into a fact-based conversation about any of this stuff because I already know your opinion, and I'm sure that you have
It's
lots of facts.
not about my opinion. It's just the facts of the case. It's just the facts of the matter. It's very simple. You look at the court docs, you can look at the rulings. Like,
again, hydroxychloroquine is objectively, factually not helpful. It's not helpful for COVID. Objectively, factually. It does not cure COVID. Neither does ivermectin. There's no opinion in this. That is why people like this guy never want to talk about facts. They always want to talk about culture wars, emotions, and how how Trump supporters have been hurt or whatever.
Trump was convicted in front of a jury in New York State. You probably think that was really bad, but I mean, he went through the whole criminal court process and he got convicted.
And you think that was probably on the up and up, given that the judge had donated to the opposing parties?
He didn't. Again, another example of Trump supporters falling for a lie that's not true, that when investigated even a little, we can find didn't happen. It's just made up. They made this shit up completely out of nothing. This is why I'm not a Trump supporter right here. If for no other reason than this. Because when we examine this shit, they are wrong every single time.
Campaign, and then
let's say even if that was true, what would the judge donating to the opposing party, how would that lead to a conviction in front of a jury?
If it were a different politician, then maybe we could have that conversation. It's Trump, dude. People's brains break on him.
You keep saying people's brains break, but what I'm telling you is Trump is just a historically terrible person. So of course people don't like him. That's
like all the way back to the 70s. The dude was denied a business license or a gambling license or something in Australia because he had ties to the Russian government. In the 90s, the dude made a casino go bankrupt. That's not business incompetence. You don't do that through incompetence. Casinos set the win rates, okay? Like, casinos cannot, what's the word I'm looking for here? Casinos don't just go bankrupt. It's like claw machines. You set the amount of, or you set the rate, the win rate. If too many people are winning, then the claw gets weaker. Same with like the slot machines at casinos. You can set it to pay out like $100 for every $2,000 put into the machine or whatever. The reason that his casino went bankrupt is because there was something else going on behind the scenes. It's just like in the 70s where Donald Trump was sued because he was refusing to rent to black tenants. He's historically a sack of shit. Before any of the political whatever, any political involvement, before any like political takedowns or whatever, he's always been a piece of shit.
It's not like only a conservative would see a guy who's surrounded by 10 people who all hate him and go, wow, all those 10 people sure are deranged. Like, how does that make sense in your mind?
What 10 people?
You're looking at Donald Trump and you're going, it's crazy that every single person around this guy hates him so much. Like, wow, people sure are deranged about Trump. Maybe Trump is just a loser. Maybe nobody likes him for a good reason.
What I'm telling you is I know people that I trust that know him. And I know people who just met him and spent significant amount of time with him. And
so, doesn't change the fact that he refused to rent to black people in the 70s. Doesn't change the fact that he is a racist sack of shit. He says racist shit today, like right now.
All of them have had the exact same thing to say. All of them.
No offense, but like his vice president isn't with him now. He didn't choose the same one, right? Very few people in his old cabinet will even endorse him. He attacked every single person in his administration. Barr quit after giving interviews because he was so tired of Trump lying about the DOJ. Every single major person that's worked with him has not endorsed him and doesn't like him and has turned their back on him and is flipped on him in court. Like, who are all these people? That's great that you have personal friends that might have good opinions about him, but like, this is a historically not liked person by even people in his closest inner circle. Like, none of these things are red flags?
No, not in comparison to what I see on the other side.
We're not talking about the other side. This is the tu quoque fallacy. It's completely irrelevant what's happening on the other side. We're not talking about that. We're talking about what Trump is up to right now. This is him trying to pivot in the debate.
I see what I see on the other side is way scarier. My honest opinion is I think that when Trump got elected and the people who really run the world recognized that they had a
Creating all these conspiracies on the spot.
vulnerability at the president of the United States, where they're like, man, we can't, even though we have historically always controlled the person who's in this office, now we recognize that we have a global vulnerability here. And I think that what their solution has been to slander and try to destroy Trump's life and make sure he never becomes president and simultaneously weaken America to a point.
Like, I don't even need to, I just listen to his words. His words. That's all I need to do.
Where they don't have that vulnerability anymore.
Is there any single thing that you could see or be shown about Trump that would make you think, okay, maybe this guy's not a good guy?
Of course.
What would you have to see? Like what situation? We can do the Jan 6 stuff if you want. We can do foreign policy if you want. We can do any topic, any individual thing.
There's literally not a person on earth that has any kind of carte blanche with me. Like I'm not.
Great. Then what would it take? Tell us what it would take. You're reinforcing these values that you're pretending to have or whatever. What would it take? Say it. The answer is there is no answer in reality. The answer is it would take nothing because he wouldn't do it.
This is what I'm saying. You see a guy who gets killed as their side. Like
he's talking about a guy at a Trump rally who was killed when that assassination attempt thing happened. And Destiny famously said he doesn't have any sympathy for this guy because he said some real heinous shit about Democrats and non-Trump supporters and basically said he doesn't give a shit about them and he hopes they die and stuff, all of that. So Destiny conversely doesn't give a shit about this guy. Not wishing death on him, doesn't say he deserved to die or any of that, but he has no sympathy is the bottom line. And I can appreciate that perspective. I also don't want anybody to die, even this guy. I don't want it. But I have no sympathy for him because he does wish death on me, or he did as long as he was alive. He wished death upon me. So I'm sorry he died, but I'm not going to cry when I read his obituary.
And he likes Trump, so their side. It's such a weird. I don't know. I don't even know how to even respond to that.
It's not about his side. It's about the fact that the guy wants me dead. That's it. He wants me dead.
I don't see people as that person's a Democrat, and then that's where the conversation starts.
Yeah, okay. Look, Destiny allowed him to pivot. This conversation was about whether or what it would be. What thing would it take for Donald Trump to do that you would say this is a bad guy, this is unacceptable, this is terrible, he shouldn't do that? What would it take? And Destiny allowed him to flip it around and say Destiny's a bad guy rather than addressing Donald Trump being the bad guy.
Stops. I find it actually really bizarre that people make decisions about whether or not they like people or want to have them in their life based on what politician they like. To me, it's as insane as if you week to week watch Survivor with your neighbor and you're like, oh, I like Rick, and they're like,
okay,
oh, I like Nancy.
We're talking about presidents, okay?
No, I know
we can do okay. On January 6th,
about
Donald Trump watched the Capitol burn for 3 hours. And he sat there and watched and did nothing until the very, very, very end. He finally sent a tweet telling people to go home. You don't think that was an abdication of his duty? You don't think he was watching his own vice president come under attack? You don't think that
this is what I'm saying. There's no point in us talking about January 6th at all. Just
because you're uncomfortable, because you know that the facts don't support you.
No, it's not because I'm uncomfortable.
Because Donald Trump
I'll say things, you'll go, that's not factually accurate. You'll say things, I'll be like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, but I can prove every single thing I say. There's 50 million witnesses to every point that I say. All you have is fantasy on your end. Right? You don't have any facts. Okay, what do you think is one thing we would disagree with that I couldn't very easily, instantaneously prove that you would have no evidence for?
I've looked at the Jan 6 stuff. I have looked at, and I've seen the stuff that you've talked about. The cops.
He is specifically asked a question here.
Cops let him in. You've got videos
hold on.
of
the cops. Hold on.
How?
The first people. Wait. We can do that right there. How do you think the very first people got into the Capitol?
You mean what was the first attack?
The first people that got into the Capitol building were people that broke in. It was Proud Boys that broke in with a riot shield. That's on video. We can see them breaking in. There are people that have been arrested. I think he actually just got sentenced.
Not just that. There are people bragging about it. They bragged about it. Okay, it's not like the deep state's word against theirs or something. It's these people said, I am proud that I did this because I love Donald Trump and I did the right thing and blah, blah, blah.
It's yesterday. Breaking into the building. We can watch all of that on video.
whether
cops,
or not it's actual people or Antifa dressed up as Trumpers, and then
Oh, please, dude. The Proud Boys told us, okay? They said, with their words, I did it, and I'm glad I did it, and I do it again. This is what I'm talking about. Literally every single conspiracy theory, every single one, is false. They're all completely false.
and then Trumpers come on. The whole thing is like people are not
why you
challenged.
do you see what's happening? I can't tell if you're aware of your own like mind rot right now. You keep pivoting away to the
That's why. Destiny. The guy's a legitimately good debater, actually. He's very good. He knows what he's doing, and he's a worthy opponent to Destiny, truthfully. But Destiny, he knows what he's doing with debates. You got to give him that at least. Like, he's done some real scumbag shit, but he knows how to debate.
these
It's not
generalized
my
points.
rap.
Okay, very specifically, the guy that broke in was not Antifa. There was no Antifa there. Multiple
I'm
people
not saying that.
have said that like these are Trump supporters. It's not Antifa. These are patriots on the day.
Like, Trump supporters said these were Trump supporters. It's not even like, up for debate. It's just not.
Of the guy that broke in was not Antifa. Well, I can give you the name. I can show you the sentencing. It's not Antifa. None of these people are Antifa.
So you think that there is no reasonable scenario where this was a thing? Like, human beings are not challenging to manipulate. If you have a group of fired up people, it doesn't take a whole lot of people to incite them into doing things if that's what your goal is, in order to give you a reason to get rid of Trump and then take him off social media. They needed a reason to kick him off social media because
Okay, you've come up with a motive, but you still haven't dealt with the fact that Trump supporters themselves, the ones that broke into the Capitol, came out and said, I broke into the Capitol because I don't like what the, people are doing to Donald Trump, what, all that other stupid shit that they say. They said it, their words. How do you deal with that? The answer is you don't. You don't deal with it. You just pretend that it's not a problem. You pretend that it didn't even happen. Get help. When you present facts to these people, they just pretend they're not real. That's it.
even if he's not the president, he's still too
The people
loud
that
for
made
them.
plans to do this were the Plan Boys, and they did this over a
The Plan Boys. A superior name to the Proud Boys. The Plan Boys. That's funny, dude.
Still too
The people
loud
that
for
made
them.
plans to do this were the Plan Boys, and they did this over a month in advance. We have all the signal calls. We have all of the group text chats. We have the plans that they'd made in advance. Like all
The
of this.
FBI couldn't under oath say that they did not have people in the crowd who were there specifically to
What
instigate.
does any of that have to do with what we? Why would the FBI ever publicly declare where they have an informant or not have an informant? And what is that? We don't need the FBI there. Donald
I
Trump was
asked the
inciting
director-
people. Alex Jones was inciting people. Nick Fuentes was inciting
Alex
people.
Jones was telling people, do not cross this barrier. They're tricking you into doing this. Don't do it. He was literally standing outside saying, don't go in.
Okay, nobody was tricking anybody. These decisions were made by the Proud Boys and the Trump supporters and everything on the spot. They chose to do this because they wanted to do it, and that's just what it is. Like there are no ifs, ands, or buts about this. I don't know what to tell you.
Don't go in. Don't go in. There was
At
what's your,
one point after, when he realized that shit was fuck, yes, but Donald Trump was
when people
marching with all of them.
started going onto the grass.
Alex
before
Jones was
people
there
went in.
with the loudspeaker, marching, walking down to the Capitol with everybody.
Yeah, we have footage of it. Like, he released that footage. He was going to the Capitol. And the moment that he saw all of this playing out, he knew that this was about to get real illegal real fast, and he backed off of it and said, stop. That's why he didn't go to prison for it, even though he was there. You know, every now and then, you come across somebody who's in this situation that realizes, how intensely bad things are about to get. And they act as the voice of wisdom in that moment. I haven't always been that person. You know, sometimes somebody pulls out some drugs, for example. Just throwing out an example. Someone pulls out some drugs, and I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And somebody else in the corner is like, this is a bad idea. We shouldn't be doing this. This is stupid. And that voice in the back of my head says, okay, now this has happened before, Owen. You need to listen to that voice back there because they were right the last time, Alex Jones is apparently that voice. He can see it from a mile away that things are about to play out badly and that you need to use your head. And that's what he was doing on January 6th.
Walking peacefully down to the Capitol is a lot different than telling people to go inside. And when people started crossing barriers to go onto the grass. He was telling them, don't do it. He saw exactly what was going to happen. Alex Jones is totally batshit, but he's right a lot.
The very
In that
first
case,
He's not right a lot, actually. He's right. He's wrong pretty much every single time. He just recognizes when things are about to go sideways and tells people to back off, or has told people historically to back off.
Do you acknowledge that the very first people that got into the Capitol building, the very first person in, was a rioter breaking in, okay, with a riot?
what does that have to do with Trump, though?
Hold on.
I'm not saying
Well,
that
wait,
people
wait,
who
I'm just
rioted
telling
at the
because hold
Capitol
on, you
are
made
good.
Yeah, he's pivoting again. Instead of just like arguing with the point that's being made, he's flipping this around and trying to come up with some ridiculous reason why. Like he's trying to he's moving the goalpost back and trying to pivot the conversation to something else.
Well,
Or
you made
like-
one claim. You made one claim about how the police let them in. The first
They
people,
did.
the first people into the
Again, he's trying to, pivot again. Destiny's pointing out the pivots and he's trying to pivot again.
Capitol building were people that broke into the Capitol.
What about all the people who got let out of jail when the videos?
What does
Pivot.
that have to do with
of the
anything?
police
Wait,
letting
what does
them
that
in?
have to do with anything? You don't know all those cases. I don't know why you ever bring them up. The very first people into the building, do you acknowledge that the very first people in were people that broke through the windows? We can watch
I
videos
don't-
on it if you want.
I don't acknowledge that because I don't know.
Suddenly, didn't he say at the beginning of this that he was like one of the most knowledgeable people on this subject? He like watched everything there was to watch and all of that. Didn't he say that? I feel like he said that at the beginning of this. And now he's basically like a fetus. He's like a 2-month-old baby. He's just completely blind, has no idea what's going on. Most innocent person on planet Earth, just in the dark. Best faith human being ever. Are you shitting me right now? Really? Please.
Okay, if you don't even know the first people in, how do you have any opinion about this at all?
How do I? If there's a pattern of things that very clearly lead to an assumption that there was something much dirtier going on, like cops letting people in, like video.
But you don't even know any of
That's not, like, none of that happened. That's fictitious.
how can you have a pattern if you don't know any of the underlying facts?
I do know the facts. I've seen the video.
But you don't. You literally just said you don't. You have no idea what you're talking about. You said that. I don't know. I didn't see that. That's what he just said. Destiny has caught this guy in a flat out blatant lie, and he refuses to own up to it, of course.
Videos of security guards walking these groups of guys around the thing. And then why is the shaman, why did he get let out of jail again?
He seemed to be, for the most part, an unwitting participant. He fell for it. The courts had determined that he was a sucker in the whole scenario. But he did still break into a private area that like regular people are not allowed to go without permission, and he trespassed and everything else. So he still deserved to serve jail time, but he was not part of the planning operation to make all of this play out. Like this full-blown insurrection attempt. He wasn't part of the insurrection attempt. So they sentenced him to 10 months instead of 20 years, as he, as some of the others deserved. And he served his time. That's why he got out, because he served his time, which I'm okay with. As long as he has that felony on his record and he serves his time, I am A-okay. I want him to be a rehabilitated member of society.
Wasn't he convicted?
Yes, he absolutely was convicted.
And then he got let out of jail when the full, record of video footage came out. They just straight up let him out.
No, that didn't happen. See, this is another thing that bothers me about the other side, quote unquote. They just lie. They just make shit up. This is just a flat out lie. I haven't heard Destiny tell a single lie in this entire conversation anywhere at any point ever. And this guy just flat out brazenly lies regularly. That bothers me. That's how I know I'm correct in this whole conversation, this whole scenario, and he is not. That's how I know.
When does that happen in the American justice system? We're like, oh, this guy's
Hold on.
innocent.
I'm not aware of what you're talking about. The January 6th rioter was sentenced to 41 months in prison.
I thought it was 10 months.
I don't know what you mean about
let
letting
out. Tucker Carlson did the expose with all the full breadth of footage from the January 6th, and he was shown.
Tucker Carlson did not give you the full breadth of footage.
They used the Tucker Carlson footage at the QAnon shaman's trial, like afterward or whatever, to try to get him out, and it didn't work because it didn't show anything that people didn't already know. He was still very, very guilty, and he stayed in there until he served his time.
Carlson gave you a heavily edited, 2-minute splice of him being led to the Senate chambers once the building was already broken into.
Enough footage for him to just be let out of jail a week later.
He wasn't let out. He served his time.
No.
Okay.
U.S. Capitol rioter, the QAnon shaman, is released early from federal prison. This is 2023. Jacob Chansley received one of the longest sentences handed down to a U.S. Capitol rioter. Has been rioter versus insurrectionist. There were two different groups. The Proud Boys were insurrectionists. Chansley was a rioter. He was 35, convicted of obstruction of an official proceeding, sentenced to 41 months. Prison records show Chansley had been moved to a residential re-entry management facility in Phoenix, where he's originally from, and is expected to be released on May 25th, 2023. He received an early release in part because of his good behavior while in prison. Mr. Chansley can now move forward with his life. For that, I applaud the BOP, Watkins told NPR in a statement. Albert Watkins represented Chansley. The U.S. Bureau of Prisons permitted its existing protocols, some of which are nuanced to appropriately permit the release of Chansley from prison. Chansley, also known as a QAnon shaman, became a notorious face for the January 6th attack. Yeah. Like I said, I think that this poor fool was just a sucker that, fell for it all. And actually, did he serve? Wait, how long did Jacob Chansley serve? I'm trying to figure out exactly how long he served. He served 27 months of his 41-month sentence. For some reason, I thought it was 10 months. Maybe that's because I got a video of him talking about being in prison on his 10-month, mark or whatever. Maybe that's what it was. Anyway, 27 months. That's actually a lot. Let me rephrase. A lot of time was shaved off of that for good behavior. You don't usually get that in federal prison. Almost ever. That's really impressive, actually. And he's a complete nutcase. Jacob Chansley is a QAnon shaman, but from everything that I've read, he seems like he's an honest believer. He seems like he's not he seems like he's just fallen for all of it. And it's not like he's underhandedly trying to do anything dirty or evil. He's just an idiot. And I can forgive people for being idiots. So
No, the shaman got released. And
yeah, good behavior.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. January 6th is a single incident, and my contention is that it's not. Trump certainly did not have any intention of leading some kind of riot insurrection into the Capitol. If
he very obviously did.
Someone goes to the Capitol building and they attack police, they should go to fucking jail. We agree on that.
Then why were you cheering for the Proud Boys to be released and claiming that it was really Antifa? Because they straight up attacked police officers and shit.
But you're connecting this, assuming that the Proud Boys did go in first.
No, there's no assuming. They said they did. I'm not making any assumptions. I'm taking their word for it.
That is not on Trump as an insurrectionist because he was leading a protest that he never gave even a word of instruction that sounded like, hey guys, let's get in there and go fuck shit up.
Oh my God, dude. These people are shameless. They will say and do anything to twist things around to be more favorable to Donald Trump. It's an embarrassment, honestly.
Let's take this place over. It's ridiculous. Everything that he said was the exact opposite of that.
No, that's what Trump said for basically his entire speech.
Yeah, and not just during his speech, but he was live tweeting during the riot. And he was saying things like, if they don't, do what we want them to do, then there will be consequences. And Mike Pence didn't cancel the vote or didn't defer to the fake electors. He counted them as he was obligated to, and Trump said Pence has betrayed us, and people were out for his head, literally looking for him to kill his ass. Trump was very obviously the insurrectionist. If you can't call Trump an insurrectionist in this case, words have no meaning at all.
That's almost exactly what he said, yeah.
Then why didn't he get charged? Because they would have charged him.
What is having to get charged? That doesn't influence whether or not he said these things during his speech at the Ellipse.
So you think that the attorney general or whoever would have been responsible for prosecuting Trump at the end of the January 6th hearings, you think they'd just let him off the hook if he said something that...
It's irrelevant. He said it. We can listen to his words from his mouth.
that equated to.
It's not about
inciting
letting
violence.
somebody off the hook. Taking somebody to court and trying to charge them with a crime relating to inciting a riot, that's a really, really, really high standard, right? You're talking about the
Right.
Brandenburg test here.
Like he's pretending that we're relying on some secret like footage or some secret thing that the deep state claims Trump said, but we have no evidence for. But we shouldn't believe the deep state when they say that Trump said these things because nothing came of it. We literally heard it from his lips. Okay, he said these words. There is no like hedging or whatever you want to do here. There's none of that. He's guilty. He said it. Should he go to jail for it? I think so, but I'll leave that up to the prosecutors. It's their job to determine if it's best to, prosecute or whatever, or what the situation is. But I absolutely for sure heard him say it with my own ears, and so did this guy. He's just pretending otherwise.
For a standard of whether or not you can criminally charge somebody. But whether or not somebody can be criminally charged because you don't know if you would like convict in front of a jury beyond a reasonable doubt doesn't mean a person didn't do a thing.
I didn't say didn't. Well, I don't think
You did. You just presented that as evidence. You were like, well, why didn't they charge him with a
riot?
crime? Like Donald Trump has used so much rhetoric that was like very obviously like leading. I mean, everything that he said, the people walked from the speech to the Capitol building, and then the rioting continued and people broke in. Like that's exactly what happened. Did this all just happen on mistake by accident? Like it just happened to be that people broke.
And he just coincidentally tweeted, Mike Pence has betrayed us and we're going to go into the Capitol and fight for what we want and all that other shit. That was just a coincidence. He had no idea this was happening in that moment. And just by sheer coincidence, there was an insurrection attempt on the Capitol at the same time Trump was talking about how he wished there was an insurrection attempt on the Capitol. Is that what you're saying? Let's see if I can play this random clip from Jacob Chansley.
Do you hold any animosity towards President Trump? And if you had the opportunity, would you do it all over again?
Well, no, I don't have any animosity for Trump. I love Trump. I respect Trump.
This is after he got out of prison.
I don't agree with everything Trump says or does. But, I mean, this is America, isn't it? We are allowed to have our own opinions. We are.
Oh, that's a funny thing for him to say right now, as Donald Trump is literally sending people to concentration camps right now for the opinions that they hold.
Allowed to have freedom of speech. And I don't think Trump wants a bunch of yes men around in the first place.
No? Okay.
I think he would rather have some form of honest opinion, and
Then you're delusional.
would I do it all over again? I'll just put it this way. I live without regret because regret is too heavy of a burden if I want to move forward in life.
Okay, well, that's interesting. That's an interesting take. The answer is yes, he probably would do it all over again, and yes, he is still a Trump supporter. And when he received a presidential pardon for his role in January 6th, he said, I'm going to go out and buy guns now. So yeah, again, like I don't think I'm even worried about him. I think that he's pretty harmless for the most part. He's a useful idiot. He's a sucker, if you will. I worry about the people who were genuinely malicious, the Proud Boys who helped plan this whole thing and actually ran an insurrection attempt against the Capitol. That's what I worry about. You know, people talk about pardoning the violent ones versus pardoning like the rioters or whatever, the people that were just there. I have a problem with Trump pardoning the violent insurrectionists because they were the insurrectionists versus the poor dumb fools that fell for it like Jacob Chansley. He got out on good behavior. I don't believe that he's a danger to society today. I'm okay with him being on the outside, actually, for the most part. But Joe Biggs, Enrique Tarrio, the people that actually planned it, that worked with Roger Stone, who worked with the Trump campaign, he was like the go-between between the two of them. They buried caches of guns around Washington, D.C., and basically followed the Turner Diaries as a guidebook. If you don't know the Turner Diaries, I did a whole video on it. It's the most dangerous book in the world, quote unquote. Those people, they deserve to rot in there for the rest of their lives. Like consecutive life sentences kind of shit. Because they are genuinely a danger to society, actually.
Into the building and the certification got delayed.
Peacefully walked down to the Capitol. He never gave any instruction to go.
He said
through
that
barriers.
one time, like 20 minutes into an hour-long speech. The rest of it
Where
was
in the speech did he give instruction that said, let's go attack police officers and break into the Capitol?
He didn't say, let's go attack police officers and break into the Capitol, but he used speech saying that you have to get tougher, that if you have to fight or you're going to lose your country, that it's a corrupt election that was stolen and that we can't allow these people. Quote, if we allow this group of people to illegally take over our country because it's illegal, when the votes are illegal, when they get the way they, reading his shit. When the way they got there is illegal, when the states that vote are given false and fraudulent information, like all of these things are about how the election has been stolen. They're stealing our country from us, that we have to fight like hell or we're going to lose something.
And of course, Rudy Giuliani said, let's do trial by combat. It doesn't get clearer than that. That is very obviously them trying to inspire a violent insurrection, which they already knew was happening because Roger Stone was the link between Trump's people and the Proud Boys. This is January 5th, the night before the insurrection took place. Enrique Tarrio was not at the insurrection. He planned it. They believed that the Proud Boys needed to have their leader no matter what happened. So if the insurrection failed, the head of the organization could not be compromised. So he planned the insurrection and sent his troops into battle. And he ended up getting sentenced to 20 years anyway, and subsequently pardoned because he helped plan it. But this is him meeting with the head of Latinos for Trump, Bianca Grazia, and I don't remember who this guy is, but let's see. I think it's labeled.
I want you to meet this attorney, Kelly. She's from Texas.
Attorney for the Oath Keepers.
Hi. Nice to meet you. Susan Enrique.
Stuart Rhodes.
Pleasure's all mine.
Stuart Rhodes is the head of the Oath Keepers, also sentenced.
Hey, listen. Do you need a vehicle to...
Head of Latinos for Trump, January 6th organizer, and she's asking him if he needs a car because they're watching him.
No,
Do they know what you're driving?
Hello.
Do they know what you're driving?
It doesn't matter. I'm sure that even if they were to come by right now, I'm on my way out. So I literally just picked up my bags.
So I thought they told you 24
They didn't
hours.
give me the 24 hours.
I'm not actually sure where Roger Stone is in this or when he came into this, but he met them in this parking garage right here to work with them. Hang on, let me just look it up. The House committee investigating January 6th riot at the Capitol on Friday questioned Roger Stone under oath. Yeah, this is immediately after, isn't it? Longtime advisor to former President Trump said he didn't give them any answers. I did invoke my Fifth Amendment rights to every question, not because I've done anything wrong, but because I'm fully aware of the House Democrats' long history of fabricating blah, blah, blah. Yep, he's a propagandist. Committee has said Stone was in Washington on January 5th and 6th, had been invited to lead a march to the Capitol that had promoted his attendance at the rallies and solicited support to pay for security. Oh, that's right. The Proud Boys were his security, too. God, he's such a weasel, this dude. Just a disgusting fucking weasel, truthfully. Yeah, Roger Stone was using the Proud Boys as his security guards. Jesus Christ, dude. This is literally exactly what the brown shirts were, what they did. This exact thing. They roughed people up. They intimidated people. They acted as private security. They were, Hitler's brown shirts were like the Proud Boys. Identical. Roger Stone was part of an encrypted group chat involving the leader of the Proud Boys and the leader of the Oath Keepers in the months leading up to January 6th. The chat was named FOS, or Friends of Stone, and was mentioned in Tuesday's January 6th Select Committee hearing, which promised to expose ties between allies of Trump and extremist groups. The existence of the encrypted chat was first reported in May by the New York Times. Jamie Raskin said the committee obtained chats but divulged little additional information. Evidence of a pre-existing relationship between Tarrio and Rhodes, both of whom are now also facing seditious conspiracy charges, helps explain a mysterious meeting between the two men and other far-right activists in an underground parking garage on January 5th. That's what we saw earlier. In April, court documents revealed that Florida Oath Keeper Kelly Meggs and Rhodes spent days discussing security plans for Trump allies like Stone via text. They also revealed that Meggs had a direct line to Tarrio. He attempted to call him after learning of his misdemeanor arrest on January 4th for crimes committed during a previous rally. Yeah, Tarrio pulled down a Black Lives Matter banner from a church and was arrested, and that was an unexpected development. Anyway, the whole thing is a big complicated mess, and Roger Stone was working directly with the Proud Boys, and I'm looking for like information about that meeting, but I can't find anything about Stone meeting with them on January 5th, so take that for what you will. But anyway, let's keep listening.
If I took the text of that speech and put it in Google, I bet you I could find identical verbiage out of the Democrats about the 2016 election 550,000 times. That is exactly what they said about 2016. And everybody acts like questioning election results is this brand new thing. I'm like, I remember when Gore and Bush did this thing with the hanging Chad and all.
They're trying to make everything seem like it's totally regular, like there's nothing out of the ordinary. This stuff happens all the time. You're overreacting. This was a literal insurrection attempt on the U.S. Capitol. There is nothing regular about this, first of all. And second, you may be able to find like 2 examples of everything in here, but this is a case of, once again, Republicans pretending that the exception is the rule.
All that, like, it's not
Okay,
like
I don't know where you want to go.
results.
Yeah, you live in it's like talking to my mom. You live in a you live in a fantasy world. You live in a
This
fantasy
is
world.
actually like talking to people in my family too.
That's okay. Yeah, you live in a fantasy world. Nothing that you're saying is true. Donald Trump gave a speech for an hour plus. He wanted there to be violence at the Capitol. That was the plan the entire time. We know that because of conversations that he had with private counsel beforehand, and we know because he sat and he watched the Capitol be rioted at for 3 hours, and he did nothing about it. People were outside chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." He was evacuated from his office, and then he was evacuated to an underground bunker where Trump didn't even call he didn't even call him to check on him. Okay, and as he's down in his bunker, he's looking at his phone where Donald Trump is tweeting, "Mike Pence has failed us." Okay, he didn't do what needs to be done. Like the idea that this all just happened by accident and the Democrats have done the same thing. No, they haven't. The Democrats have never led a mass protest insurrection at the Capitol building to circumvent the certification of the vote. That's never happened ever. And the idea that you're going to string together some series of quotes from people and pretend that this is the same thing as Donald Trump giving an hour-and-a-half speech about how every single swing state election was stolen, you will never find anything.
Like, I really appreciate how Destiny built out this whole argument so succinctly. This is the exception proves the rule nonsense that I hear constantly from people like this. And it's really hard to like address it sometimes because it can sound very persuasive to people who don't know all of the context. Somebody says, so it's more dangerous than Mein Kampf. Yes, the Turner Diaries is more dangerous than Mein Kampf, and let me tell you why. Again, I did a whole video on the Turner Diaries, but basically the Turner Diaries is a book about, it was written in the 80s, or I think the late 70s or the early 80s, I believe. And it's a book about a guy that is basically in a sci-fi world or whatever. There's a guy that is white and he lives in this world now in the United States where being white is evil, where it's considered bad, and like black people have taken control of the US government completely and are persecuting white people now. And they've banned guns completely. Guns are no longer allowed. But he kept a couple of guns hidden in like in the boards of his house or whatever, just in case he ever needed them. And some black people basically were raiding some police. They were raiding his house there in his little apartment complex. His neighbors are being carried away by police, and their baby is still in the crib in their house, but they're taking both the mom and the dad away anyway and leaving the baby there in the house to die because they found a shotgun for self-defense. And he basically makes black people out to be these monstrously evil people who don't care about white people. And he says, that's the line. I can't put up with this anymore. And he grabs his gun out of the little drawer and he meets up with his friends at this safe house they've been paying for this whole time. And they plan their next steps to try to reclaim society, to turn it back into America. It basically works you up from, this is a really unjust situation that this guy's dealing with. Nobody would ever agree that this is okay, what he's outlining here. It works you up from that position to, this guy is literally committing a genocide on black people and Mexicans. By the end of the book, he's committing a genocide on them. And it kind of builds you into supporting that genocide step by step. It was a really, really psychotic book. Like in the beginning, they wouldn't have even suggested this, but by the end of the book, they were calling people N-word lovers and said that he went out to hang people who were N-word lovers. And one girl in the crowd watching this, her friend be hanged basically for dating a black guy. She said, somebody else said, but Jennifer did it too. You know, when she's being hanged, she said, Jennifer did it. And then the rope cuts her windpipe off. And the guy, the main character, Turner in the book says, so the question is, why didn't we go after Jennifer too? She was standing in the crowd. The answer is because she wasn't on the list. And one person being killed for this will suffice to serve as an example for everybody else. The book sounds like it was written by the KKK. Yes. It was written by a guy named, God, I don't remember his name now, but he went on to found a famous white power organization. And he was like part of the KKK and everything. It was really, really horrific, fucked up stuff. Like just disgusting, disturbing, evil shit. And a lot of domestic terrorists throughout the past 40, 50 years since it was written have had copies of that book on them when they committed their domestic terrorism. Another thing the book does is it explains in vivid detail how to make a bomb, how to counterfeit money, and a number of other things. How to basically build a full rebellion. The guy was a physics teacher. A physics professor. He was a physics professor at a university that wrote it. And he quit his position as a physics professor to lead a white supremacist organization instead. So anyway, that's the Turner Diaries. Mein Kampf sucked. It wasn't entertaining. It wasn't interesting. It wasn't a good book. It wasn't, there's no real value in it except that Hitler wrote it. It sold almost no copies when he wrote it. The only reason that it took off in the first place was because people were mandated to have a copy of it eventually. And, well, effectively mandated. It was too rambling and incoherent to serve as a real guide to being a Nazi. It couldn't have possibly served as a guide for that. Mein Kampf couldn't. It's just famously the ramblings of the guy that's most famous for that. That's all. Mein Kampf isn't a dangerous book. It's trash. The Turner Diaries is a genuinely dangerous book. What's his name? Timothy McVeigh, Oklahoma City bomber. He built a bomb using the instructions in the Turner Diaries and had the chapters in the Turner Diaries that describe how to build a bomb. He had them on him when he was found and arrested or whatever. It was in his truck. And yeah, he was arrested about 90 minutes after the bombing for driving without a license plate and for possessing a concealed weapon. And when they got him out of his truck, he had, I think, like chapter 7 or something of it printed out. Anyway, that's why it's the most dangerous book. And for some bizarre reason, who can say why, people like this guy on screen here support Timothy McVeigh's actions and people that read the Turner Diaries. And back to what I was saying, the Proud Boys were acting out instructions from the Turner Diaries. It described how to bury weapons caches around Washington, D.C. when you're taking, like, the Capitol and everything. Like, all the shit that was in the January 6th riot, a lot of that shit was in the Turner Diaries. That's why I will never support the Trump side, ever. I don't give a fuck. I don't care if black people are, like, capturing white people and, like, torturing them or whatever the fuck. I don't care. That's irrelevant. I don't stand for what the Turner Diaries stands for. It's horrific, ugly, dirty, disgusting shit, and it is what Donald Trump and the Republicans have to offer. That's it. Anyway, yeah, it looks like that's the end of it. Yeah, tell me what you think about it in the comments. I'm, like, honestly so entertained by this shit. It's just ridiculous.